A number of years ago, I was in a antique mall with my wife, and one of the things I always do is I go to the book section. I always try to find an interesting book to read, and I came across this book called The Magic Power of Emotional Appeals. It's a very old book. It was published sometime in the 1960s, but when I read that particular book, it had some incredibly powerful lessons in there that I would really like to share with you. And the concept basically says that we are all very much preoccupied. We might talk about being multitaskers and stuff, but in fact our brain is not multitasking. We are basically focused on one thing, and we have a switching time that actually occurs there. My wife often says that I have selective hearing, and what that really means for me is the fact that I am very focused on it. She might talk to me, but I don't hear her. And so that's what this book really tried to talk about. It says, what would my wife be able to say to me that would jar me out of whatever I'm doing and force me to listen to what she had to say? And effectively, when it comes to entrepreneurship, that's a very powerful tool to jerk somebody out of their preoccupation and bring them into the fold, to give them your undivided attention. So now, what I would tell you is there's 4 emotional appeals that come out of that particular book. And the first one is related to money, whether it's get rich quick or making money, whether it's saving money, it doesn't really matter. It's generally focused on some type of a monetary gain that you would imply. When somebody hears that, they generally are pulled out because everybody's interested in money. And you see these all the time in regular ads, buy one, get one, those kinds of things. Oh, I lost my dog, nobody cares, but you say reward for the dog, people might pay attention. A tool that I use, quite frankly, and has been very successful for me, is when I do a trade show. Oftentimes I might be doing a trade show, and I'm really trying to get the attention of people as they're walking by. And in some cases, maybe there's a small group of people sitting in front of my booth having a conversation. They're not really talking to me. They're talking amongst themselves. And maybe I want to get the attention of that group, or if nothing else, I just want them to move on so that people will feel more comfortable coming into my booth. And what I will always do when I go to a trade show is I have a wad full of coins in my pocket. And what I'll end up doing is I'll drop a bunch of coins on the floor. I can tell you instantly that conversation stops. They all turn around, they look at me, and I go, hey, let me tell you about my product. I interject myself into that conversation right away. That is the power of money as an emotional appeal. Another one is self-preservation. We've all had those situations where we might be sitting there preoccupied or whatever. Maybe an Amber Alert comes in, boom, it draws our attention immediately for that. Or something comes on the news, boom, you see that, automatically your attention is drawn to a shooter nearby. Even things like religion, for example, are based upon the premise of self-preservation. While it might not be in this particular life, it might be in the afterlife. Then what you're doing is related to that. A situation today with preppers, for example, preparing for the eventuality of a societal breakdown or stuff, is very popular these days, and it's all based on that entire concept of self-preservation. The third emotional appeal is called recognition. And how can you, if you recognize somebody, you get their attention through that, whether we talk about, award shows or whatever the case is. One of the ones that's most obvious to me is Mary Kay. And if you ever see a good salesman from Mary Kay, they'll be driving a pink Cadillac, and they drive around town. That's the ultimate in recognition. I remember a story from In Search of Excellence, one of the first business books I ever read when I first became a manager, written by Tom Peters. And he talked about a situation where in a factory there, the managers of this factory were attempting to instill in their workers a desire to build more products during the day. And I can't remember the exact numbers, but let's say during the day shift, they were producing 8 of these widgets. And so at the end of their shift, they took a big piece of chalk and they wrote on the walkway as you kind of come in the number 8. The people came in for the night shift, looked at that 8 and said, what's that all about? And they said, that's how many products the day shift made today. And the next day when the day shift showed up, they saw that 8 was all scribbled out and there was a big 9. It's the power of recognition that all of a sudden that night shift did more, that the day shift even wanted to come in and maybe produce 10 that day. So again, that value of being some recognition is very, very powerful emotional appeal if you can build that into your marketing. And the last of those emotional appeals is what I'm going to call romance. All right. You see this all over. You see especially at the bottom of news articles, you'll see these things, how to look younger, how to lose weight, all those things. It's all about trying to make you as a human look better to the opposite sex kind of a thing, whether it's a testosterone booster kind of a thing that will increase your virility as a male or whatever the case is. Even more attractive political candidates garner more votes than the less attractive ones. We are preoccupied with romance out there. And I want to share a story relative to that resonates with me, is one of the most successful jewel thieves of all time was in fact a woman. And she was a rather buxom woman who would go into a jewelry store with a very low cleavage dress. She would pick out her mark, which was a male salesperson. And she would always have a fake piece of jewelry in her hand, and she would go in there and she might tell the salesperson that she was interested in that, and she would make it lean over so that the salesperson could see her cleavage and stuff like that. That's where his attention was. And so while he was looking at that, she would be taking the one that she had in her hand and putting it in the box and pulling out a real piece of jewelry out there. The only time she ever got caught, quite frankly, was when the salesman was in horrible pain. I can't remember if it was back pain or tooth pain or something like that he just couldn't even pay attention to that. He didn't respond to her sex appeal, if you were. And as a result of that, he actually saw her doing the swap, and that's how she ended up getting caught. So I think, as any kind of entrepreneur, if you can involve one of those 4 emotional appeals, be it money, be it self-preservation, some form of recognition, or some kind of romance into your marketing situation, your marketing efforts will gain much more traction because you'll actually be able to get the attention of the other person.